Francois Hollande spokesperson says that the outgoing French president wants ministers to do everything possible to ensure the biggest defeat possible for Marine Le Pen.
To fully commit themselves in the election campaign to ensure that Marine Le Pen has the lowest possible score.
And for more, let's now cross live to RT's Charlotte Dubinsky. Well, Charlotte, what does this statement actually mean for the race?
Well, it means that the government machine of Francois Hollande, the socialist government, is completely behind Emanuel Macron in this race now for the Élysée Palace. As you heard there, Francois Hollande's spokesperson saying that President Hollande has told his ministers that they need to be fully mobilised in this campaign to ensure that Marine Le Pen achieves the lowest possible score in the second round of this presidential election. Now, it's not only the government that have already said they're backing Emanuel Macron to become the next president of France. We've also heard leaders of other parties say similar things, such as François Fillon from the Republicans and also Benoît Hamon from the Socialists, who were both defeated in that first round. They've also said they will now back Emmanuel Macron. And that's led presidential rival Marine Le Pen to say that essentially the elite of France have already handed Emmanuel Macron the keys to the Élysée Palace. This is what she said.
Macron goes into the second round on a carpet of rose petals, with almost total support from the French mainstream media, elites, trade union organisations and entrepreneurs. But it's okay. I prefer to be supported by the French people.
Well, that's what Marine Le Pen had to say. Now, there's also been criticism of Emmanuel Macron from within his own camp over how he has treated the campaign since coming top of that first poll on Sunday. They've criticised him, his own aides, for the 15-minute speech he gave when he came first in that presidential poll, saying that he came across as perhaps being too arrogant, sounded like he'd already won this election and that it was a victory speech, whereas actually what was needed was perhaps a little bit more sobriety. There's also been criticism of how he then celebrated after giving that 15-minute speech on Sunday, the fact that he spent the evening in a very, very famous Parisian brasserie where he was surrounded by his aides and celebrities. Now, that was criticised again as being too arrogant. We've also heard from the National Front's deputy leader, who described the evening as being all sparkly and sequins, and again too arrogant, comparing that with how Marine Le Pen had spent her evening on Sunday eating at a small restaurant town in the north of France, sort of where her headquarters had been based that night. So very, very different perspectives of how Macron is performing in the early days of this last part of the campaign. And then there were also people, socialist mayor from down in the south of France, who described Macron's campaign evening victory as being rather indecent, given that Marine Le Pen had made it through to the second round. And we've also heard from some centre-right MPs who say that, Macron sees this as being a foregone conclusion that he is going to win the presidency. Now, while most polls do say that he is ahead of Marine Le Pen and is likely to win, a poll that came out this week say that in the first few days of the second part of the campaign, only 40% of people are happy with how Emmanuel Macron is campaigning so far. So this race is far from over. We still have almost 2 weeks to go before France goes to the polls yet again. And there is a suggestion that the turnout could be low, and that could favour Marine Le Pen.
Well, Charles, thanks so much for bringing us this update. Charlotte Dubinsky from Paris.